All right, I think we can get started, and people who are walking in can just go and sit down and sneak in. How was the three first sessions today? Good? I loved them. I absolutely loved it. I'm so happy to be here today. So I will be presenting website analytics in my pocket using Microsoft Fabric. My name is Cathrine Wilhelmsen, or Cathrine Wilhelmsen, if that's easier. My pronouns are she and her, and I work as a data and analytics solution architect in a Norwegian company called Evidi. On my free time, I enjoy doing the same things that I do at work. I love speaking and blogging about tech. I've been a full-time nerd since I was about 10 years old. And because of that, because I do a lot of speaking and blogging, I've been awarded a Microsoft Most Professional since 2015. And all that means is that I go out, I talk about tech on cathrinew.net. So the thing that I'm most excited about these days is something called Microsoft Fabric. Have any of you heard about that here? Oh, we actually do have a few hands. That is 3 hands, I think I see, maybe 4. What about Power BI? Okay, more hands. I was expecting that. Fabric is kind of Power BI on steroids. And it's very cool for me to be able to talk to you about this because I'm assuming that most of you are developers, maybe app developers, web developers. So I want to show just a little bit of the other things you can do while working in tech. So Fabric has a bunch of different features combined together in a single software as a service. So you have something called Data Factory, which is all about pulling data in from sources, transforming them, and storing them somewhere. You can do data engineering, which is basically the same thing, except that you can use code, things like Python code. You can store data in different ways, in a data warehouse, which is more like a traditional database kind of type, or in a data lakehouse, which is more big data or file-based. And then you can do all the cool things on top of all of your data. You can do things like real-time analytics and data science-y stuff. I don't know anything about that. I'm not good at math. I just like grouping and sorting and ordering my data, and then I give it to someone else. But the cool thing is Power BI. On top of all of this, Power BI is a super cool tool for visualizing your data. So you can make all kinds of graphs and charts and reports and make things look pretty. Now, I haven't actually worked with Power BI much. I've been working with data for 14 years, and usually I've been stuck in the database world. So when Fabric was released and all of these things kind of came together, I decided that, okay, this is my turn. I'm going to do something fun, and I'm going to learn this product the way that my clients would use this product. So what I built for this was a 2-part solution. So first of all, I have my website, which is hosted on Cloudflare Pages. It's a static website, so it's just built, deployed, and it runs completely for free. And Cloudflare offers an API that I can use to pull analytical data, all the stats for my visitors. So what I do is inside of Microsoft Fabric, I pull out the daily stats and the hourly stats, and I combine that into my website analytics, and I built something that was easy for me to kind of keep track of how is my website doing, basically. So why did I build this? Because Cloudflare has a web analytics dashboard. They offer this already. It's built into the solution there, so you don't actually have to build it. But I wanted to phase out Google Analytics, which was one of the reasons that I decided to move over to static pages in Cloudflare in the first place. I didn't want to have Google Analytics with the tracking and the discussions about, GDPR and all the things that have been going on here in Norway and Europe. And Cloudflare offers that free and privacy first type of analytics. So this comes out of the box. And I thought that, okay, this is really cool. So I moved to Cloudflare back in September, so it's fairly recent. And that was the point that I realized that they only store their data for 30 days, which is, it's fine if I want to see how, tracking my stats for the last month or the last week or whatever. But I love data. That's my whole job. Like, I want to store that data. I want to be able to look into my data at any point in time. And I want to, at some point, be able to see, okay, how did September 2024 go compared to September 2023? So I had to build my own solution. And the reason that I chose Microsoft Fabric is, first of all, it gave me experience with one of the brand new tools. I got to sit hands-on and build something that is outside of what I do for work, but using the tool that we use and that our clients use. And I got to actually just play around with it and have fun with it, and not just like, here's a project, here you deliver it, but I got to do something that I was excited about. I got to make things that were pretty and pink and sparkly and shiny. I didn't have to use, the corporate templates and things like that. So it was just more fun. I was able to do something that was very me. And obviously, tech is fun. I think that's why most of us are here today. Tech is fun. We enjoy it. We enjoy doing what we do for work. And we want to learn more about what other people do. So getting the data was the first part, and Cloudflare offers an API for GraphQL. How many of you have worked with GraphQL before? Quite a few of you. Okay, so I had never touched that before. I'd only used like regular APIs or pulled data directly from a database. So looking into GraphQL was a bit of a mind change for me, and trying to understand that. But again, it was fun. It was a new thing that I could discover and explore. And the thing with Cloudflare is, or GraphQL, is that you have one single endpoint for all your API calls, and then you pass in the query and kind of the results that you want back into the API call as a JSON object. So for me, most of the work here was actually just trying to figure out how do I build this query to get the data that I want, and then how do I actually pass that in through whatever app I was using, and then how do I do that through Microsoft Fabric. And after that, once I got the data in, I decided to, like I said, use Microsoft Fabric for all of these things. I ingested the data, so I pulled the data in from that GraphQL, and then I used something that is called pipelines. I then visualized the data using Power BI, which is where you can actually see and do some cool things with it. And then Power BI through Fabric offers a native app on my phone. So a lot of this stuff came out of the box. I had to pull the data in. I had to create my own visualizations, but then it just works on my phone. So for those of you who are, app and web developers, I'm not. I just have like a hobby project on my website. So for me, not having to think about that was very nice. So let's look at how this actually works. So inside of Microsoft Fabric, this is the user interface. It's all web-based. And inside of here, you can see all the different experiences that I mentioned before. So in this tool, multiple people can work together. So usually I would be working on the data factory side, pulling data in and storing it and making it available for someone else. And then they would go into Power BI and build that report. So that is what I did in this project as well. So if I go into the Microsoft Fabric Data Factory experience, I can go and look at the pipeline that I created. So I built two pipelines here. I built one for pulling in all my daily stats, and I pulled all the hourly stats in as well, because I wanted to run these on different schedules. Daily runs once a day, and the hourly runs once an hour. So I just separated them to make that easier. They look the same, so we can just look at one of these. And this is where some of you who are probably developers are going, oh my gosh, you're working in a UI. You're dragging and dropping boxes and using arrows and stuff. But this is meant for business users mostly. I could probably do this in code, but it is a very easy way to work for people who aren't developers. They just know that, okay, I want to copy some data from somewhere to another location, and then you might want to do something else. So what I've done is set up a simple pipeline, which is basically just a workflow where I pull in all my daily stats. First, I store it as a JSON file, just because I want to make sure that I store all my data in the original formats, that I can keep that, because maybe in a year from now I want to build something else, and I will have the original JSON files there. Then I also pull in those stats into a Parquet file, which is an optimized columnar storage type of file. It's kind of like an Excel spreadsheet almost, but it's very compressed and it's very efficient to use. And the reason that I do that is just to make sure that I can get all the data into columns, like it was a database, because JSON files with nested hierarchies and so on are slightly more difficult to process from the data and visualization perspective. And then finally, I load all of that data into something called the lakehouse. Before I go into that, I will just show you what the data looks like. And I'm going to show you inside of GraphQL what this GraphQL query looks like. And this is fairly simple. So what I have here is, first of all, I do a request and I get all my 1-hour groups in this case, or my 1-day groups in the other query. I filter on a specific date range or date time range. And this is where that scheduling comes in from Microsoft Fabric, where I say, OK, once an hour, get the data for this hour. And then I just pull in the different stats that I want. In this case, I've kept it very simple. So I make sure to, for each date or date time that I have, get the number of page views, the requests, and the unique visitors. So it's fairly simple, but it gets me all the data that I need. And that looks something like this in the results set. And when I run this every hour or every day, after a while, I will get all of that information built up into, it's going to keep growing with 1 row per hour or per day, which means that I can build statistics and visualizations on top of that. So this is the query. I'm showing you this in GraphQL because if we go back into the pipeline, actually doing this inside of here is not the prettiest. We have to use something called dynamic expressions in here because I want to pass in some parameters. And GraphQL also needs to flatten everything into a single line. So it's not as pretty in here, but it works. And this is where I can pass in those parameters, things like the date. I can format the date time. And I also can pass in my account tag. This is the part that is kind of cool because just by changing the account tag, I can reuse this pipeline for my other websites hosted on Cloudflare as well. So once I pull in that data, I am going to just run this pipeline and see and pray that the demo gods are with me today. So I'm going to pull in the daily stats from yesterday, just so you can see how that works. So it's now running. And that pipeline is going into that GraphQL, pulling out the data, and then it's converting that into a different format, and then it's storing it into my data lakehouse, which is the storage area that I have. Again, it's kind of like a database. It's just based on files underneath. So here we can see that our first task succeeded here, and then the rest is going to just finish as soon as it can. It's usually slower when I show things on stage. It is always slow when you show things. But once this runs through, it is going to be stored into my data lakehouse. So I'm just going to show you that very quickly as well. This data lakehouse, it is actually probably still confused because it's running right now. So let's just wait for that one to finish. Okay, how many seconds? Are we getting up to 50? And I've heard from Microsoft that if you click the refresh button, it goes faster. So we're going to keep, yay, it succeeded. All right, let's see if this lakehouse is willing to work with me again. It is not willing to work with me today. All right, let's see if my report works. This worked this morning. Demo failures always happen when you're on stage. Let's just open up the report because the report, pray to the gods, it works. So the only thing here is that I don't have the last hour because of running this now and probably because of the failure. It's not showing me the last hour here. But the other things is pulled out from the historical data. So once I get that data into my lakehouse, it's basically just like querying a table in a database. And that means that I can pull it out and build reports like this. And this makes it super easy for me to just go ahead and look at, how many visitors have I had? What are the trends? I have a trend line showing that currently my stats are going down, which means that, as someone who loves speaking and blogging, I should probably blog more to get more visitors on my site. Or maybe I'm like, I'm on the höstferie, so I don't care about that right now. We can do it next week. But it's just a fun way to see, okay, what are these peaks there? Okay, so I can see that on October 3rd, I got a sudden spike in visitors. and also in views on my page. And I know that that was because I blogged about speaking here at AdaCon. So I pushed out that blog post, I shared it on LinkedIn, I shared it with my company, and obviously you can see those spikes coming in there. So it's just a fun little way of seeing how I'm doing, and also seeing things like usually Thursdays, for some reason, is a really good day for me to blog something. Maybe it's because I often blog on Thursdays, or maybe it's just a day where people are like, I'm ready to go home for the weekend. Let's just, look around on LinkedIn and see what's going on. You don't really know. Saturdays, Sundays, people don't really read blogs. Once I get all the country statistics in as well, I'm assuming that these visitors are mostly from outside of Norway. I've seen that in the past at least. So once I have this, I can also go in and edit this report. For this is by default, we're looking at the web report here. So this is optimized for looking at it on a big screen or a tablet size. But inside of this Power BI, let me just hide these so it can be a little easier for you to see. I can switch between the different views down here. I can switch from the desktop layout view into the mobile layout view. When I do that, I can then go ahead, I can drag and drop these around if I want to. And then that just gives me the option of pulling in the different visualizations that I want and optimizing that for mobile view. Because, maybe you don't need all the stats on your phone. Maybe you just need a few of them. And once I'm done with that, I can just update and publish. And when I'm on my phone, all I do is I open the native Power BI app on my phone. And you can't really see it here, but that gives me this report view on my phone as well. So it's just the same thing. You drag down to refresh the data, and that gives me on the go a very simple way of seeing, okay, I actually got a good spike of visitors because I blogged about something cool yesterday. Again, just a fun little project, but it's nice to be able to have something that shows the stack that I am working with, but in a slightly different way than what I do for clients. So this has been a very fun little project for me. I do have some things that I want to improve on these, and I'm sure that you could probably get some ideas as well, what would be interesting to see if you were to track the stats on your own page. So for me, country statistics, it is there, but I haven't pulled it in yet. That is one of the things that I want to do. I want to see, where are my visitors coming from? I know that I have a lot of visitors both from the US and from India. And then I can see, what times of day did they visit compared to Norway? Maybe that can make me, rethink. Maybe I need to schedule my post later in the day to kind of target those audiences better. I also want to see what of my blog posts are the most popular. So I can also do that. I know the stats are available. So I can pull that in and see that these blog posts are super popular. And the funny thing is that the most popular blog post I have is something that I was just like, this is a hack I did in Notepad++ like 10 years ago, and people are still looking for it, which is, but it's out there. People search for it, they find the solution, and they're happy. And then also, like I said, once I build up this repository and I get all of my data going from September this year to, all the way next year, I can then look at, am I trending up? Am I trending down? Am I doing better this month than I did the same month last year? And so on. So there are a lot of cool things that I can do here. And it's basically, as soon as the data is in, I can do all the fun stuff in the Power BI reports on top. So that was a quick view into what I do for work, things that I think is fun, slightly different from the other, developer and programming talks here today. But if you are interested in learning more about this, I'll be around all day. And thank you so much for letting me speak here today. It's been a pleasure.